Everything to do with the Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot drama is also not helping at all in the least. In fact, it's only making things worse for the Disney image, for the overall Snow White box office results.
Disney doesn't know what a Disney princess is anymore, which is crazy.
What was this Academy Awards? Anyway, feminist Conor McGregor.
Who the fuck is that guy?
It's a weird walk for a weird broad, and I don't like her.
It is, and it's really mean to put her next to Gal Gadot.
The news seemed to explode across.
And so I've got some bona fides here on being fair. The movie was absolutely terrible. In every way that the movie differed from the beloved 1937 original, it was worse.
One of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Snow White is generally understood to be a very, very white person. And in this case, they decided, nope, no, that doesn't make any sense. So I don't think we're allowed to say that, right? I was referring to the movie as sand beige.
It is not racist to suggest that a character who is described in the original as skin white as snow, that is literally how the character is described in the original, that's a character description in the same way that, as you mentioned, in Moana.
What happens when a beloved classic, cherished by generations, transforms into a high-stakes battleground of modern politics, shifting cultural expectations and clashing creative visions? Welcome to the chaotic and often bewildering world behind Disney's Snow White remake, a project that has become far more than just another fairy tale adaptation. What was once a straightforward story of innocence, kindness, and magic has now morphed into a lightning rod for controversy, sparking heated debates about artistic integrity, corporate decision-making, and the delicate balance between honoring tradition and embracing progress. As tensions flare both on and off the screen, this remake has revealed how even the most timeless tales can become entangled in the complexities of our modern era, leaving fans, creators, and executives alike grappling with questions about what it truly means to bring a classic into the 21st century. The news exploded across social media seemingly out of nowhere, sending shockwaves through both fandoms and industry circles alike. Gal Gadot had been abruptly removed from her role in the highly anticipated live-action Snow White remake. This sudden decision left fans reeling as they scrambled to make sense of what had happened. According to sources close to the production, this wasn't an isolated incident, but rather part of what insiders were calling a larger, house-cleaning effort at Disney. The entertainment giant had already found itself embroiled in controversy after controversy over recent years, particularly due to its increasingly bold creative liberties with classic properties. From polarizing casting choices to debates about narrative overhauls, Disney's attempts to modernize its cherished catalog had sparked intense backlash from some corners of the audience. And now, with Gal Gadot's removal, it seemed like yet another chapter in a pattern of missteps that many believed were tarnishing the studio's once untouchable reputation. For a company that prided itself on magic and nostalgia, these mounting scandals painted a picture of internal chaos, a far cry from the enchanted world Disney sought to project. This expanded version adds more detail about the context of Disney's controversies, describes the reaction of fans and industry insiders, elaborates on the house-cleaning metaphor, and emphasizes the growing perception of dysfunction within the company. It retains the original tone while enhancing depth and engagement for viewers. Long before any official trailer was released, early whispers about Disney's plans to alter key elements of the beloved animated classic began making waves across fan communities and industry insiders alike. These discussions immediately ignited intense debate among audiences, with traditionalists fiercely defending the sanctity of the original film while others expressed cautious optimism about the possibility of a modernized narrative that could resonate with contemporary viewers. The divide grew even wider when Rachel Zegler, who was cast in a leading role, made public comments criticizing certain aspects of the original Snow White story, calling them outdated and ill-suited for modern sensibilities. Her remarks struck a nerve with purists, who viewed her words as dismissive of the cherished Disney heritage that had been built over decades. For many fans, Zegler's statements weren't just an isolated critique. They became emblematic of what they feared was a broader effort to dismantle the essence of the classic tale. This clash of perspectives set the stage for heightened tension, turning what might have been a routine adaptation into a cultural battleground long before the cameras even started rolling. As opinions continued to polarize, it became clear that Disney's decision to update Snow White would not only define this particular project, but also serve as a litmus test for how far the studio could go in reimagining its iconic properties without alienating its core audience. Behind the scenes, whispers grew louder about creative differences on set, with insiders revealing a growing sense of unease among the cast and crew. Reports suggested that multiple reshoots were needed due to clashing visions between Gal Gadot and Zegler, further fueling speculation about the root cause of the tension. Some sources close to the production claimed that these reshoots weren't just minor adjustments, but significant overhauls of pivotal scenes, hinting at fundamental disagreements over the direction of the film. Was this tension merely personality clashes, or was there something deeper at play? Observers noted that Gal Gadot had reportedly pushed for a more nuanced portrayal of the evil queen, one that leaned into subtlety and psychological complexity, while Zegler allegedly favored a more straightforward approach to her character's journey, emphasizing empowerment through action rather than introspection. These diverging interpretations of how the story should unfold only added to the friction, leaving many to wonder if their creative differences were symptomatic of broader issues within Disney's evolving storytelling philosophy. The situation seemed to underscore the challenges of balancing two strong personalities with distinct artistic sensibilities, especially when both were central to the success of such a high-stakes project. As rumors swirled, it became increasingly clear that the discord wasn't isolated to just Gal Gadot and Zegler, but reflected larger debates about tradition versus modernity in adapting classic tales for contemporary audiences. This growing divide not only complicated the production process, but also raised questions about whether the final product could ever truly satisfy fans of the original story or meet the expectations of modern moviegoers seeking updated narratives. Bob Iger found himself firefighting yet another controversy, a situation that had become all too familiar in recent years. As the head of one of the largest entertainment conglomerates in the world, he was no stranger to high-stakes drama, but this time felt different. His repeated statements aimed to calm the public, often emphasizing that Disney's intentions were rooted in creativity rather than ideology. Yet, every word he uttered was scrutinized under a microscope, with fans and industry insiders dissecting each syllable for hidden meaning or ulterior motives. Critics began to question whether Disney was genuinely addressing the mounting backlash or simply deflecting attention from deeper creative issues by focusing on misinformation and vague assurances. Was this just another case of corporate smoke and mirrors, designed to shift blame away from poor decision-making? Observers noted how Iger's carefully crafted language seemed to avoid acknowledging the actual tensions on set or the internal struggles that had reportedly plagued the production from the start. Instead, his responses often pivoted toward broader themes of innovation and storytelling, as if trying to steer the conversation away from the chaos unfolding behind the scenes. The more he downplayed the controversies, the louder the skepticism grew, fueling a narrative that Disney was out of touch with its own audience, and perhaps even itself. For a company built on enchantment and wonder, the growing perception of deflection and mismanagement posed a significant threat to its legacy. For Gal Gadot, the decision to remove her from the project came as a devastating blow, one that left her grappling with feelings of betrayal and frustration. According to sources close to the actress, she had entered the role of the evil queen with high hopes and a clear vision. She was told she would have creative freedom to shape the character into something bold and multidimensional, a modern reinterpretation that still honored the classic villain's menacing allure. However, as the production unfolded, it became increasingly clear that this promise of creative autonomy might not hold true. Behind the scenes, tensions began to simmer. Early script discussions reportedly supported Gal Gadot's vision for the evil queen, a character who could embody both menace and vulnerability, offering audiences a fresh yet respectful take on the iconic role. But as public reactions to the film's deviations grew louder, Disney allegedly shifted its focus back towards Snow White's storyline, reducing the evil queen's screen time and narrative significance. This pivot left Gal Gadot feeling sidelined, as though her contributions were being diminished in favor of a safer, more marketable approach. Insiders suggest that Gal Gadot attempted to negotiate compromises to preserve her character's depth and presence, but these efforts appeared to fall on deaf ears. The behind-the-scenes power struggles only intensified, creating an environment where collaboration became nearly impossible. Some reports indicate that disagreements over key scenes, particularly those involving the dynamic between Snow White and the Evil Queen, led to multiple reshoots. These reshoots were said to stem from conflicting visions between Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler, further straining their working relationship. As the situation escalated, Gal Gadot reportedly found herself increasingly isolated on set. Sources describe moments of visible tension during interactions with the director and co-stars, hinting at a breakdown in communication. For an actress known for fostering cooperative relationships and building strong bonds with colleagues, this sense of marginalization must have been particularly difficult to endure. The final straw, according to unnamed insiders, came when discussions about promotional appearances arose. Gal Gadot allegedly sought greater control over how she addressed the growing controversy surrounding the film in interviews, wanting to present her perspective authentically. However, Disney's PR team reportedly insisted on a tightly choreographed approach designed to neutralize negative press. Neither side seemed willing to budge, leading to what some describe as a heated confrontation involving top executives. In the aftermath of her departure, stories of Gal Gadot's emotional response began to surface. Friends and confidants painted a picture of an actress deeply heartbroken and disillusioned. Known for her humility and professionalism, Gal Gadot had always prided herself on forging positive relationships within the industry. Yet here she was, removed from a high-profile Disney project under circumstances that felt chaotic and unfair. Observers speculated whether the emotional toll of this experience might lead her to step away temporarily from future projects or push forward into roles that could restore her sense of creative fulfillment. For fans of Gal Gadot, the official explanation that her removal was a purely creative decision rang hollow. Given her proven ability to attract audiences and elevate characters with her star power, many questioned whether external pressures, rather than artistic considerations, had driven the studio's actions. Regardless of the specifics, one thing was clear. The magnitude of negativity swirling around the production had reached a tipping point where even Gal Gadot's involvement might have done more harm than good if tied to contentious behind-the-scenes drama. As news of her departure spread, speculation mounted about how Disney planned to address the absence of such a central figure in promotional materials. Would they attempt to recast the role? Use advanced CGI to minimize her presence? Or perhaps rebrand the Evil Queen entirely as a minor cameo? Each possibility carried its own risks, fueling doubts about whether the film could deliver on its promise despite losing one of its biggest stars. Ultimately, Gal Gadot's exit became emblematic of the broader challenges plaguing the production, a clash of creative visions, mounting controversies, and corporate maneuvering that overshadowed the magic Disney is known for. For an actress accustomed to critical acclaim and box office success, this experience marked an unsettling new chapter, leaving her fans wondering what lessons she, and the studio, would take away from this tumultuous saga. Rachel Zegler emerged as one of the most polarizing figures in the entire Snow White saga. While a segment of the audience and critics praised her for boldly championing updated themes that they believed reflected contemporary values, others were far less forgiving. Detractors accused her of playing a pivotal role in destabilizing the production, pointing to her off-camera commentary as a source of unnecessary tension. Her remarks about the outdated nature of the original Snow White narrative didn't sit well with traditionalists, who viewed them as dismissive of a beloved classic. These comments sparked heated debates across social media platforms, dividing fans into fiercely opposing camps. Supporters argued that she was simply being honest and pushing for necessary modernization, while her critics saw her words as emblematic of a broader disconnect between Disney's new creative direction and the expectations of longtime fans. The controversy surrounding her only deepened as rumors circulated that her outspoken posture had contributed to on-set friction with co-star Gal Gadot, further complicating an already tumultuous production. Every interview or statement she made was dissected, often reigniting the firestorm of opinions and keeping the drama squarely in the public eye. For better or worse, Rachel Zegler had become inseparable from the narrative of chaos surrounding the film, her every move scrutinized and debated by audiences worldwide. This meltdown only served to deepen a growing perception among audiences and industry insiders alike that Disney was increasingly drifting away from its long-standing commitment to preserving the enchantment, innocence, and timeless magic of its classic tales. For decades, Disney had built its reputation on crafting stories that resonated with universal themes of kindness, bravery, and wonder, stories that families could return to across generations. Yet, in recent years, decisions tied to reimagining these beloved properties seem to prioritize modern sensibilities over the cherished essence of the originals. Observers were quick to draw parallels between the Snow White fiasco and the controversies surrounding other major franchises under the Disney umbrella, such as Star Wars and Marvel. In both cases, attempts to innovate or inject contemporary ideologies into established narratives often alienated core fans who felt disconnected from the heart of what made those stories iconic in the first place. The central question now hanging over Disney's future creative endeavors was whether the studio could strike a delicate balance between innovation and tradition. Could they honor the source material while still appealing to modern audiences? Or would their continued push for reinvention risk further eroding the trust and loyalty of lifelong fans? As skepticism mounted, many wondered if this marked a turning point where Disney might be forced to reconsider its approach, or face the consequences of losing touch with the very foundation upon which its legacy was built. In summary, the Snow White remake saga serves as a stark illustration of the immense challenges that arise when attempting to modernize beloved classics in an era defined by shifting cultural expectations and corporate pressures. What was once envisioned as a bold reimagining of an iconic tale has instead become a cautionary tale of creative clashes, internal discord, and misaligned priorities. The controversy surrounding the film underscores how delicate the balance is between honoring cherished traditions and pushing for contemporary relevance. Gal Gadot's abrupt removal, Rachel Zegler's polarizing role, and the broader debates about Disney's creative direction all point to a company grappling with its identity in a rapidly changing entertainment landscape. As we await the final chapter of this unfolding drama, both in terms of the film's release and its reception, one must wonder, will Disney take this meltdown as a pivotal moment to reflect and recalibrate? Or does this debacle signal the beginning of even greater upheaval for the studio, one that risks further alienating its core audience while struggling to adapt to the demands of modern storytelling and societal change? Only time will tell whether this episode becomes a turning point or another step toward unraveling the magic of Disney's storied legacy.